Hello, everybody. It is Thursday in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My name is Adam Bittner, Assistant Sports Editor for Multimedia at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, joined for our weekly chat with Jason Mackey, our Post-Gazette sports columnist. Jason, we got a lot to get to this week. We're going to be talking about the latest on the Steelers quarterback situation with Aaron Rodgers. Lots going on at the NFL owners meeting in Florida. We're going to be talking about the 2026 NFL QB class and whether it is all it's cracked up to be from a Steelers perspective. We hear a lot about Arch Manning. Are there other names that are more intriguing than the ones that are in this year's class? Obviously, it's been a big topic with the compensatory picks, so we're going to dig into that. We're going to talk about Pitt basketball losing some transfers, maybe touch on the Penguins a little bit. And then on our third segment, which will air on the Post-Gazette Sports Pirates YouTube channel, we're going to talk about this disastrous start. So excited to have you along for the ride. Jason, how are you today?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. I'm doing better than our local sports teams at the moment, it seems. Not an ideal start for the Pirates when we're recording this, but I don't know. Hopefully things change quickly. Aaron Rodgers is going to come here to save it all, Adam.
Yes, that is the salvation is coming, so fear not. Jason, before we dig into all those topics, we just want to thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's Edgar Snyder and Associates. Law firms come and go, but what law firm has been here in Western Pennsylvania fighting for injury victims for more than 40 years? It's Edgar Snyder. What firm has a staff of over 130 people who live and work here? It's Edgar Snyder. Law firms come and go, but Edgar Snyder and Associates is a name you can always trust. So remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. If you've been hurt in an accident, call them at 1-800-94-EDGAR or visit edgarsnyder.com. They're available 24/7. Okay, Jason, we're going to get into these 2026 quarterbacks, Arch Manning, Drew Allar, LaNorris Sellers, names like that in a minute here. Before we do, though, it's been a busy week. Mike Tomlin, Omar, Art Rooney II, all offering comments on the Aaron Rodgers situation. Obviously, there was the workout between Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf on the West Coast. How are you digesting all of this news this week? And it's news in the sense that it's something new that happened, but functionally there's still no deal, and we're now closer to a situation, where Aaron Rodgers is in-house seemingly than we were last week.
I'm preparing for the inevitable, Adam. And to be fair, I thought there was going to be a deal before. Like when Aaron Rodgers came to Pittsburgh. And the conversation, I think we talked about this on the podcast, was between him and Mike Tomlin, and it wasn't about his contract. It was about a fit and vision and history and all this stuff. To me, that told me everything I needed to know. I think Aaron Rodgers wants to do this, and I think it just got confirmed by throwing with DK Metcalf. And the fact that Art Rooney II was willing to say what he said at the owners' meetings and the way these guys are framing this, come on. Aaron Rodgers is coming here. Now, I want the finality to it. I'm sure you want the finality to it. I think fans want the finality to it. Not that anybody is like over the moon about the idea of Aaron Rodgers coming here. I think they just want the chase to end, which is fair. I don't think it's the worst idea. I don't like it for a price tag of, $40 million or something like that. I hope it's a little bit more economical. Maybe it will enable the Steelers to do something else. But I think Aaron Rodgers still might have something left. And what I like about it, hearing Mike Tomlin talk about it, even Art, Aaron Rodgers has a lot to prove. Mike Tomlin has a lot to prove. They have a lot to prove together. And I think that's why we're seeing this. I think that's why we're seeing the Steelers ride this out. Like, this is Mike Tomlin's baby. He's going to see it through for better or for worse. I hope it's for better, but I think that's why we're kind of staring at what we are right now.
Is there any concern for you about the circus that this has somewhat become? Maybe they'll say internally it's not a circus. We know what's going on. We know what the plan is. And they might be right, but externally it is certainly become a bit of a speculation circus, and it just seems slightly unnecessary. And we know some of the things that have swirled around Aaron Rodgers. But if you ask other people, I think Brian Bacco had Brian Costello from the New York Post on his Chiptama Football podcast a couple weeks ago, and he said Aaron Rodgers was a pleasure to deal with in New York, even with everything that was going on with that franchise. So what's your read on how this has gone down rather than the fact that it is going down in all likelihood?
You know what I think the genius part of this is? We're not talking about the same old Steelers. We're not talking about, they're doing the same thing over and over. No, we're actually talking about the complete opposite end of it. We're talking about, the Steelers would never allow this. The circus, what is Mike Tomlin doing? You know what, man? It's 180 degrees opposite. I don't know if that's good or bad. It doesn't matter until Aaron Rodgers comes in here and plays well. If he doesn't play well, none of, the rest of it is noise. And I do think it's a bit of a circus. I'm tired of seeing it. I want it to end, but I understand where they're coming from. And as I kind of take a sober look at this, Adam, like they're available options. Who are you most intrigued by to play quarterback for the Steelers? Like this will take us into the 2026 question, because I think long term, that's where they need to find their quarterback. For finding their quarterback for 2025, I don't hate the Rodgers thing. I just don't.
Yeah, well, and at this stage, the die is cast in a lot of ways. The other guys you could have considered, Russell Wilson, they're all gone. So
but I wouldn't take them over Aaron Rodgers. I would not at what the price came in for Fields. Like you're telling me I've got to beat 30 million guaranteed, 40 million total to get Justin Fields. I don't want to do that. I didn't want Russ any way, shape, or form.
Interesting. I think I still would have preferred Russell Wilson because I think he pairs well specifically with what the Steelers now have in DK Metcalf and George Pickens. So, if I had my druthers, it would have been Russ after Justin Fields was off the board. I think I liked Justin Fields as a forward-looking option. Russ, I think, would have played well with those guys, and maybe Aaron Rodgers will too, and we'll find out. But that was at least my logic about the situation. But Jason, you did set up the next question well, is pretty much no matter what way you slice it, we're looking at Aaron Rodgers at age 41 as the bridge to whatever comes next. And a lot of people are speculating that because the Steelers have all these extra compensatory picks from letting these free agents go, that they will now have the draft capital to move up next season wherever they finish. So if they have a bad season, maybe they won't need to move up too far. If they have another 10-7, 9-8 type of situation, maybe they got to spend a little bit more draft capital to move up. But regardless, the expectation is that they should have it to go up and get one of these quarterbacks. The question for me, Jason, is if it's not Arch Manning and you can't get him at number 1 overall, which I think would be a heavy lift for any team, let alone the Steelers, to give up that amount of draft capital, are you intrigued enough by some of these other names that are down the line? Nico Iamaleava from Tennessee, Drew Allar from Penn State, LaNorris Sellers from South Carolina, Garrett Nussmeier from LSU. Are those names appreciably different in your mind than the guys that are available in this draft that we've talked about? Jaxson, Shedeur Sanders, Tyler Shuck. You can go down the line, Will Howard. I look at the rest of those names and say, I don't know. If those are the names I'm picking between, I might want to take a shot on a quarterback in 2025. And maybe I want to do it again in 2026, but I think the idea that they should put all their eggs in the 2026 basket based on those names is a little bit suspect.
Yeah, although I think you just built this question up so we can talk about Drew Allar again, and that's all right. No, I'm kidding. But, I mean, he's honestly one that I think about. And I think if Drew Allar has the type of season that I think he's capable of having on the stage that Penn State will present to him, I think he's somebody I look at and think, that might make sense for the Steelers. I mean, several things need to fall, and I don't think Arch Manning is realistic unless this goes really, really poorly. But some of the other guys you mentioned, we don't know. I mean, as we sit here right now, am I enthralled with throwing a bunch of compensatory picks at somebody else to try to move up to take one of them? No, probably not. I think there are other needs to address. But there's an entire college football season to play out, the story to be written, however you want to say that. And here's where I'm against, lumping all of those comp picks towards somebody in the 2026 draft, just on principle. I think there's more to gain this year. And if you bring in Aaron Rodgers, you're not thinking about 2026. If they have the opportunity to move up somewhere in 2025, to maybe you can mortgage some of those picks into a second rounder, get something that will help your football team in 2025. To me, that's what you're trying to do. That's the vote you've cast or the line you've cast or whatever. There's a cool saying there that I can't think of it right now, but it should be prioritizing this year, Adam. I'm not, if you have to move up, then fine, whatever. Maybe a quarterback falls to you. I just think there's too much unknown in 2026.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Drew Allar is the kind of the personification of that. To get back to that question of, if you ask me, the Penn State grad, how I feel about Drew Allar going into next season, I've said consistently, I like him. I like what, he can bring to the table. I don't hold that late interception against him in the Orange Bowl too much. I look at that and say, he had bad receivers to work with, and he was in a desperate situation, and mistakes like that happen. If you ask me as an observer of the Steelers, whether I think Drew Allar could be the savior of the franchise, I'm not at that point yet. And I think that's the quandary is I can like the player as a college player. Do I like him? Has he shown me enough to think he can be a franchise quarterback? Absolutely not. I'd say the same thing about Nico Iamaleava, who I think the scouts like a little bit better. None of those people, though, scream to me that they could be a franchise guy. And I think you pulled it another thread that is interesting to me as you look at the next 2 years, Jason, is it's the depth is a problem. And no matter what they do in this NFL draft, they're still going to come out of it with needs. You can address some of them, but you can't address all of them, especially without that second round pick. Do you look at the compensatory picks next season as part of that pie too? If you need to build depth, and if you're going to have 10 picks, are you better off using all of them on players rather than giving them up to get one?
Yeah, I mean, that just depends on what is available to you, right? Like, it's a value equation no matter what you're looking at. If you can find somebody that will allow you to move up 12 spots in the first round for a couple of those, like, yeah, you're going to take that deal, right? And I just wanted to put a bow on one of the Allar things. Like, I didn't mean to present that as I think that like Drew Allar is going to be the future Steelers quarterback and is going to be this like Heisman winning star. I'm just saying that if he produces for what I think is going to be a very good Penn State team, then our perception of Allar, our perception a lot of the quarterbacks that we're talking about, I think is just going to be different. Like, I think, if we would have talked about a lot of guys, I don't know, the Jaxson Darts of the world, or maybe Will Howard's a little bit different. I don't know. It's just we're operating on a lot of context for the guys in the draft now that we don't have for the guys that we're talking about for 2026. But yeah, it's a fascinating question. And I don't know what I would do with the comp picks, but I would do something with them. And I don't have any problem if that would be filling out your depth areas. I think they have needs there on the defensive line and the defensive secondary, even a guard to replace Isaac Seumalo, something like that. It depends on if I'm getting immediate value.
Jason, as we begin NFL Draft Month here, it's April 3rd today. What are the top things you're looking on down the stretch in this draft process? We've been doing a lot of mock drafts, a lot of mock draft videos, a lot of mock draft trackers. I think Ray Fittipaldo just released his latest 7-round mock. What are the storylines you're looking at as this starts to get a little bit serious now with free agency behind us?
Yeah, I mean, how seriously are they going to take defensive line? Like, the idea that they weren't at Michigan's pro day when you have two guys there. I don't think they were at Ole Miss's pro day either. And I mean Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan. And not that they have to be at a pro day, right? Like, they weren't at Troy Fautanu's pro day, I don't believe. But, I'm trying to suss out whether it makes more sense for them to keep going with receiver or go toward defensive line. I don't think it's going to be a quarterback in the first round. That doesn't line up to me. Maybe running back. I hope it's not. I think you can address that need later. To me, are they showing more signs toward defensive line with visits and where they're at? Or are they showing more signs toward a wide receiver and building out depth there? I don't think we know at this point. I think it's probably a split based on who they've had to the facility. I know this next phase will be more who is in Pittsburgh and who they're talking to here. I'm just hoping to see a lot of the best defensive line prospects coming into town.
Do you have any thoughts on Jaxson Dart, just to finish this quarterback conversation? Because the more mocks I track, the more I see people externally connecting him to the Steelers.
Yeah.
His stock is still fairly volatile. I don't know that I'm in love with him, but at least nationally, that's the discourse, is that Jaxson Dart is becoming something of a consensus view. Again, I don't think that's the local view, but we would be remiss not to address what people are saying around the country.
I don't have any problem with Jaxson Dart later in the draft. I'm totally fine. If we're talking Jaxson Dart in the third round, great. All in. I just don't like Jaxson Dart in the first round until I see, some more seasoned mock drafters making that pick. Like, I've seen him anywhere from the third overall pick, Adam, to like the fifth round. There's
some big names this week, Jason. I think it was Field Yates, Bruce Feldman, some big hitters. I mean, it took me by surprise the same way. I mean, I've been waiting for those big names to do it, and now it seems like they are starting.
Where did they have them?
First round of the Steelers at 21.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Jason. I don't see it with this guy. And anytime
it might be there, it's a huge risk. It feels like a huge risk to me.
Especially because you don't have the second round pick. I think if you had the second round pick, it's a different conversation, but you don't. And so all these other needs you're not addressing till the third round to have a quarterback who's going to sit behind at least two guys, probably. Like, you're not throwing him in there behind Aaron Rodgers. You brought Mason Rudolph in here for a reason. So he's probably not seeing the field until 2026. I'm not seeing it with this guy either, but I could be wrong.
I really think we're overthinking this. And this has nothing to do with Jaxson Dart. This has everything to do with the first round. Think about what they have along the defensive line. They have Cam Hayward and like looks around, checks notes. They might play Keanu Benton a little bit differently. Okay, great. You get rid of Larry Ogunjobi, and there's a bunch of like projects that have never really worked out. Look at some of the best teams in the NFL. What have they done, including the Philadelphia Eagles? Like that's a recent example. You need to have more depth, more size on the defensive line. What happened to the Steelers late in the season? The Ravens ran all over them. How are you going to stop that? Better, stronger defensive line play. Art Rooney II at the end of the season said they need to build out their defensive front. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? The move is to address defensive line. Every other position has had some sprinkle of like actual improvement. We can debate Darius Slay, but it's an improvement to the defensive backfield. DK Metcalf, I don't think anybody's disagreeing with the idea that they've made their wide receivers room better. If you're going to go out and spend money on Aaron Rodgers, whether you agree or not, that's a large financial commitment to do that. There has not been a commitment to make the defensive line better. Jaxson Dart, I love you, but like it's got to be defensive line in that spot, in my opinion.
I tend to agree, Jason. We're going to get into some Pitt basketball here. Some unexpected, I think, headlines in some ways this week. We're also going to maybe talk a little Penguins. Before we do, just want to thank a couple more sponsors. Hey, Pittsburgh, are you ready to train like a champion? UFC Gym has everything for total body health under one roof. They have group classes from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to Zumba, personal training, cardio, weights, cryotherapy, infrared saunas, and more, all at an unbeatable price. Not sure where to begin? All members get a starter session with an expert coach to help map out your fitness plan. Your first visit is on us. Drop in with free parking at Market Square or the waterfront and follow UFC Gym Pittsburgh on social media. Train different, feel unstoppable at UFC Gym. Also want to thank our friends here at Bradenton, Florida.
Embrace the laid-back charm of island life while sinking your toes in the sand and discovering real, authentic Florida in the Bradenton area. Unspoiled beauty and pristine beaches, a vibrant waterfront downtown energized by local arts and culture, fresh Floridian cuisine with a flourish of rich history, and friendly locals ready to welcome you to this preserved paradise on Florida's Gulf Coast. Plan your visit today at BradentonGulfIslands.com.
Thanks to our friends in Bradenton. Jason, we are back here on our weekly chat. We're going to talk some Pitt basketball here. A rough week for Jeff Capel. Jaland Lowe enters the transfer portal. He's been possibly Pitt's best player for the last couple of years. Both Diaz-Graham twins are now in the portal as well. Despite skipping the NIT and being told that, not playing basketball was going to allow them to reposition for next season, you've got a bunch of losses and not a lot to show for the gains. Is this a disaster for Jeff Capel, or is this an opportunity to start over with a team that was not good enough to get into the NCAA tournament the last couple of years and maybe pursue a reset?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say it's both, and I'm not trying to say that in a way that's like squirming out of answering the question. Like, it's not good, in my opinion. Like, Jeff Capel has had more than enough time to build a somewhat stable program that even in the era of NIL and all this mess that has become college athletics, which is a separate conversation that makes me mad, he should have enough runway here to keep players around, to build something consistently, to have a core that, isn't bolting when you have the season that Pitt did. I mean, right now he's bringing back one starter in Cam Corrin, who was up and down to begin with. So I say all that to also say it's a good opportunity to reset. And as much as I hate what college sports has become and just rampant transferring, and every year it's a completely new team, and I think we've kind of lost touch with reality here, it does offer Jeff Capel an opportunity to quickly reset, reboot, and whatever R word you want to use. So, I mean, he's basically starting from nothing, right? Like, you're bringing back, I don't know, Biba Cummings and Papa Conte, and then you have to add a whole bunch in the transfer portal. It has been done. I don't like it. I wish it was different. I wish more has been accomplished by Capel. It makes me worry about his tenure and whether he's an effective coach and what they're going to do. I know they can't really do much now because of the buyout, but it does kind of get him, another swing of the hammer to try to fix it.
Well, I think that's an interesting question. How do you apportion blame to him versus the system in which he is working in the context of these conversations? Is the fall, the way this roster is going, is it about the sport or is it about him?
I mean, I think it's both. I don't think it's binary. Like, Other coaches have figured out this system. Other coaches have not had a lot of NIL money, and they've been able to put together strong seasons and win. I know there's a lot of comparison because it's easy between Andy Toole and stuff that's happening in other programs. It's not apples to apples. At the same time, look at Robert Morris. There's limited resources. They were able to break out of that and do some really good things and get to the tournament. I know the resources aren't what Jeff Capel ultimately wants. I think Pitt has more than enough there to be able to win. Other people have come into that spot, have come into similar jobs. They've been able to win. Even this past season, Pitt has shown an ability to win. It's not playing that basketball consistently enough. And not finding that consistency, in my opinion, Adam, that's not an NIL problem. That's not a funds problem. That's a bringing in the right kids, staying focused for the entire year, getting people to buy into what you're doing. So, I mean, again, it's not great. Sorry to use that analogy with Pitt, but I don't think, I'm not saying it's all the system and not the coach either.
Well, I also look at the Final Four and the programs that are in it and say, I think a lot of people are upset that there aren't more Cinderella stories in this NCAA tournament, but 3 of the Final Four I would not consider to be blue blood college basketball programs. You have Houston, which has surged onto the scene in recent years. Auburn, a football school that is now doing big things in basketball. Florida's kind of in a tweener situation because they did have that kind of awesome run back in 2007, 2008, that range. But otherwise, I don't know that you think of them on the order of a Duke or a Carolina or an Arizona and some of those programs. So do you look at this Final Four, even though many people don't think it's a Cinderella situation, as at least a template for a Pitt or a Penn State or a West Virginia, and say, if you take things seriously and you do the right things, there are still opportunities in this college basketball economy to do pretty special things?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. And not even the Final Four teams, Adam. I look at, some other and not that, Jeff Capel should be compared to Calipari all that much, but I almost said Jeff Calipari, John Calipari. But it's the model, right? That you can do this quickly, bring in the right kids. I think I saw Rick Pitino, a quote from him saying that he's not going to recruit a single high school kid next year. Like, it's going to be all college. I mean, that's kind of the model here. Like, you need to bring something in together and spit out results immediately. It's not a slow 4-year build. It's just not reality right now. And I think if you look at the teams that are still alive, the teams that have done well in the tournament, they've done some version of that. They've been able to identify talent, bring it in, get it to play together quickly. There's not that acclimation period. So I don't know. It's just a different sport. Maybe Capel's the right guy. I don't know. I actually like a lot of what he's done on that front. I'm a little surprised the results aren't better, but I absolutely see blueprints there for Pitt.
Quickly, Jason, any Penguins thoughts as we go down the stretch here? I think now that the Pirates are back, that the table or the page is somewhat turned on people paying attention to the Penguins. But what are the things you're watching in these last couple of weeks here?
Some of the young guys, and I know we planned to record this, Adam, while I was up in Cranberry, but it's absolute nut house there. There's some sort of youth hockey tournament, so that we would not have had a quiet moment. So I just came home. But yeah, I was up at Penguins practice, and I was struck by. Actually went up to Brian Rust and said, I'm going to ask you a couple questions and try to make you feel old. And he laughed about it. But I've just been struck by the young guys there. It's a different energy. Rutger, McGroarty, Ville, Koivunen, they're playing top 6 minutes. And I know, like you said, people have checked out on the Penguins and you're thinking like, okay, this team's bad. They're not going anywhere. Bury them, whatever. And I understand that. It's not been a good season. But I don't think it can take these guys forever. But they have some young guys playing prominent minutes. And the success of McGroarty, of Koivunen, of other guys on that roster, Emil Bemstrom even, a lot of that is going to dictate how quickly the Penguins can do this. Can they reboot, retool, whatever you want to call it. So I've really liked the maturity from those guys. It's neat. You've got Sid, McGroarty, Koivunen. They're all just in a line, soaking things up from Sid. But I think these guys can get back to being reasonably competitive in 25 and 26, and it has to be young guy driven.
I agree. Jason, we're going to get into the Pirates here in the third segment. If you're on video, head over to our PG Pirates page. For that third segment, we'll be recapping a pretty disastrous first week for the Buccos. If you're on audio, stay right here. It'll all be one file today. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you on the other side.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.